It can seem as though road networks are always demanding attention. Whether you have a network size of 200 lane miles or 2,000, there's probably a long list of projects that your community could benefit from. Often this list is longer than resources can afford. When it comes to varying costs, timelines, demands, budgets, and outputs, how should road managers prioritize projects for their road network and community? The cost-benefit value, or CBV, uses a simple equation that allows us to evaluate projects on an apples-to-apples basis. It asks, which projects will give my community the best bang for the buck? By evaluating cost, pavement condition, impact to the traveling public, and added years of service life. Note that this equation can also be used to quantify CBV for long lists of projects using Microsoft Excel or a similar computational program. Visit the About page of the CBV calculator for more information on the formula itself. For this video, we'll demonstrate the CBV calculator found on roadresource.org. The CBV evaluation requires that we refer to projects on our wish list for a given year. Considering limited budgets, I may not be able to accomplish all of the projects that I'd like to this year, and that's okay. This exercise will help me prioritize using a consistent, data-driven method. Like most calculators on roadresource.org, I'll start by entering my network size in lane miles, or kilometers. Modify currency and units of measure by clicking on the units in the top left. The next input constrains the impact of AADT, which is the average annualized daily traffic. For some networks, AADT can be a large number, given population and commuter volumes, and for other networks, it's relatively small. Having the ability to modify this factor allows networks of all sizes to use this calculator and compare scores on similar scales. We'll elaborate more later, but this factor does not have any effect on the prioritization of projects. It simply constrains the bounds of our scoring system for easy reference across networks. Next, I'll enter my budget for the year, nearly $530,000 this time around. Now begins the real work of inputting road projects. Referring to my wish list, I'll enter these in any order. Starting off with project number 1, I'm considering a double lift of microsurfacing on a particular road. Hit Enter Road Segment. Empty input boxes appear to describe factors about this particular road segment today, before any treatment ever happens. What are we dealing with over on road segment number 1? For the road name, I'll title this project something specific. For the sake of the example, I've numbered my projects. However, you might use street names. As an optional point of reference, you can also enter the segment mile markers or cross streets below. This doesn't affect the calculations, but can help you stay organized with multiple projects on the same road. For example, project 1 might start at Maple Street and end at Oakland Lane. Next, input the PCI of that road. If you're not familiar with PCI, click the question mark for some examples. Make an estimation if needed. Next, that road's AADT, or average annualized daily traffic. Again, the question mark can help with more estimations if you're unsure. Next, include the total pavement width. In my case, this project is 32 feet across. Entering the number of lanes across will help the calculator understand the full project size, in this case, 2 across. The number of lanes doesn't factor into the cost of the treatment, but instead helps us understand how many lane miles you address with this plan. Then click Save. Now, with the existing segment information entered, it's time to input information about the intervention that I'm considering. PCI has auto-populated from the last screen, and the road segment I have in mind is about 3,281 feet long. For the sake of the example, I'm going to list all of my projects as the same length. Next, I'll select the treatment for project 1, a double lift of microsurfacing. Note that the treatment costs and life extension auto-populate, either based on the automatic presets from the website, or if I'm logged in, it will take the figures that I've inputted based on my local costs. Feel free to edit and update these numbers in the calculator if needed. 3 columns along the right have also totaled: my segment cost, which is the price of project number 1, my cumulative cost, all projects thus far on the calculator, and the CBV score. Note that there is also a budget line. This line corresponds with the cumulative cost and indicates that I can afford the projects above that line. Since I only have 1 project entered, it doesn't tell me much. Let's enter the rest of my projects using that same process. With all of my wish list projects entered, I can now start comparing. Still listed in numerical order, I notice that my budget will not cover everything. What if I were to prioritize these projects based on PCI or condition? If I spend my budget on the worst roads first, how far will my budget take me this year? Click Worst First Approach to see. At this rate, my worst road will soak up most of my budget at more than $330,000 to intervene. What's more, I will only be able to cover 1% of my network. The calculator also calls out a few projects below, which if we were to ignore the worst first methodology, might individually fit into the remaining budget. In this case, I'm left to prioritize the remainder on my own through guesswork or other methods. Instead, let's see how far we can get if we prioritize a bigger bang for our buck. Even in this view, I can see the CBV scores along the right. Simply hit CBV approach at the bottom to reorder the list by CBV score. With this reorder, I'm able to address 6% of my network and accomplish 5 of my projects. Often, projects on roads with the worst conditions are not always the best use of funding. Consider waiting a year before addressing project number 6, a costly remove and replace. When you run your own network calculations, even in the CBV view, you still may see a few projects marked by asterisks. Consider these projects as add-ons to your plan, which can fit in based on cost and budget. What about that curious AADT constraint from earlier? Feel free to modify this number to understand its impact. Note that it only changes the numerical value of the CBV score, and not the order of priority. This can simply help to bring CBV scores into more manageable bounds, between 1 to 100 for example. Once I'm satisfied with my scoring system, I can easily export my work into an Excel document using the button on the top left. By following a CBV-driven approach, I'm able to prioritize or advocate for projects based on impact and cost, rather than other factors. This quantitative evaluation system can support road managers in removing the guesswork and the politics from decision-making, and instead prioritize the health of the road network along with the most efficient use of resources. For a detailed demonstration, or more information on pavement management techniques, visit the Contact Us page on roadresource.org.